to the 8th rank spirit cultivating realm, because Hua Tiannian followed the path of Confucian cultivation. The Cloud Deer Academy he was attending was founded by the great disciple of the Confucian sage 1,200 years ago. It was a sacred place that scholars all over the world dreamed of. The unique status of the Cloud Deer Academy was not just because its founder was a disciple of the sage. The most important point was that it was the only remaining academy where one could cultivate the Confucian path. Hua Tiannian's 9th rank aperture opening realm could enhance memory, allow for lightning-fast reading, and strengthen learning ability. But he was still just dregs. If he encountered a crude martial artist like Hua That, he would still get beaten up. However, advancing to the 8th rank spirit cultivating realm was a huge leap. But to get there, one had to achieve self-enlightenment. Then asked again, how did you cultivate to the aperture opening realm? Tiannian took the opportunity to puff out his chest and flex by memorizing the sage's classics and applying them. At first, it takes a long time to memorize, then it relies on a certain level of understanding, similar to the essence refining realm of the martial artist system. Enduring the tempering of qi and blood year-round to cultivate physical strength. Hearing that he had to memorize things, then felt his saliva dry up and asked again, so, for the spirit cultivating realm, do you still have to cultivate physical strength? Tiannian, already annoyed, became even more irritated by this troublesome guy and replied bitterly, a Confucian scholar in the spirit cultivating realm has a fearless heart. Every word and action can win people's hearts and minds and inspire their fighting spirit. He had tried to deduce the cultivation method from the abilities displayed by the spirit cultivating realm. As he was speaking more smoothly than a 4K TV screen, that whether intentionally or not, asked, did you succeed? Tiannian immediately fell silent, which meant of course not. Then he changed the subject and said to his mother, Mother, an elder from the academy has become an official and is going Qingzhou, which is a long journey. Tomorrow, we students must present poems to send him off. That had to curse, damn it. Was he pretending not to hear? Now, Tiannian was so helpless that he clenched his fists because he still hadn't written a farewell poem. Lin Noyet, on the side, pouted and said that her second brother had no talent for poetry. The aunt, still deluded, defended Tiannian, a top-tier mother who always believed her son was exceptionally talented. Poetry is nothing. Uncle Hua suggested just whipping up any random poem. The poem he blurted out that day was so grand. Heaven did not give birth to me, Hua Tiannian. The Great Fang's eternal ages are like a long night. This was still a thorn in the young man's side, not some great piece of literature. The young man was extremely embarrassed and had to quickly U-turn back to the main topic. That elder is a renowned scholar throughout the world. His literary works are excellent, and the farewell poems for him should be presented by students who are good at poetry. Besides his admiration for the elder, he also had the idea of building deep connections. If he could win the praise of the senior, it would be very beneficial. True great Confucians have an air about them. Giving money or gifts is useless. One must cater to their interests. Thus, the proud and arrogant Hua Tiannian finally realized the benefits of networking. If Hua Tiannian had been able to connect with this literary senior from the beginning, he might have been able to save the Hua family from prison and wouldn't have been left with no one to turn to for help. Uncle Hua, knowing the situation, looked as if he had chosen the wrong civilization for his in-laws, because Tiannian's grandfather was just like his son, only knowing how to write prose, but having no talent for poetry. The aunt, being teased by her husband, showed her authority as the head of the household. Tiannian was able to pass the provincial exam, all thanks to my Li family's efforts, because he takes after me. One could say his wife's family was barely a literary family, so it was natural for their son to be smart, taking after his mother's genes. But when it came to the little girl in AM, things were strange. I had heard this and barked back at his aunt like a mad dog. Are you saying the Hua family's genes are stupid? The aunt didn't know what genes meant if it was some Binduong dialect, but she cursed back anyway. If you had gone to school from the beginning, you wouldn't have studied martial arts, and your handwriting wouldn't be so sloppy. Seeing that had stopped barking, the aunt thought she had successfully muzzled him and felt smug. But she didn't know that he just couldn't be bothered to argue and was thinking about his younger brother's problem. With his brother's personality, if he took the initiative to network, it confirmed that the status of this academy elder was not low. Then in thought, Nilang's deep connections are my deep connections, and my deep connections are still my deep connections, so I must help with both hands. Then, the aunt was surprised to see her nephew having another fit. He went crazy and pointed at her, saying, Today, I will let you know, aunt. Everyone in my Hua family is a talent. The family didn't know he was a genius, but they were sure he was a troublemaker and advised the nephew, it's best if you don't get involved in the affairs of us scholars. Unexpectedly, Then opened his mouth, 1,000 miles of yellow clouds, the white sun adrift, leaving the whole family stunned for 5 seconds. Then another line, the north wind blows the wild geese, the snow falls in flurries, caused Tiannian's mind to tremble violently. From the poem, he could almost visualize the scene. Finally, Then said, Don't worry that you have no friends on the road ahead. Who in this world does not know you? With one poetic attack, both ornate and tightly defended, he completely knocked out Tiannian's pride. He never expected such an outstanding work. Truly a 10 out of 10, but it was plagiarized. The next day, That and Uncle Hua were sparring again. that attacked continuously while Uncle Hua calmly defended. With a clang, Uncle Hua had to praise his nephew's skills for improving again. However, to improve further, he had to advance to the 8th rank Qi refining realm. The movement of Qi flows in the body required a perception of heaven and earth to be generated. Besides using drugs to advance to the Qi refining realm, one also needed a 7th rank body refining realm expert to help open the heavenly gate. Back then, Uncle Hua, thanks to his merits in the Shanghai campaign, was able to exchange them for having an expert in the army help him open his heavenly gate and enter the Qi refining realm. After returning home for 2 years, he had Tan Nian. Luckily, it was his cultivation that increased, not his height. Now that the world was at peace, there was no opportunity to accumulate military merits, so it was difficult to advance to the Qi refining realm. That listened with a head full of question marks, not knowing what his second uncle was beating around the bush about. It turned out that second uncle wanted to see his nephew settle down, get married, and have children. Now, the man was wiping away tears while that and was wiping away sweat that was pouring down like rain. It's true that from ancient times to the present, the things elders say to the younger generation are all the same. But he couldn't lose his virginity. But heaven doesn't fail those with money. Besides relying on accumulating merits, there was another way, pay to win. Vigilantes relying on violence was a forbidden act. Therefore, the imperial court had to strictly monitor the number of martial artists. The law stipulated that spirit-cultivating realm experts were not allowed to secretly open the heavenly gate for anyone. If they wanted to open the heavenly gate for their own descendants, they had to report it to the government. But currently, the situation in the officialdom was extremely dire, with corrupt officials running rampant. The authority of the imperial court gradually weakened. Therefore, there were still spirit-cultivating realm experts who secretly conducted transactions on the black market. That could now only work his back off to earn silver to substitute for merits. Otherwise, what else did he need this iron rod for? Just let go to lighten the load. Just then, the aunt and her daughter came out and told Uncle Hua that if he was free, he should take Lin AM and Lin Noyette for a walk. But he had an appointment to go drinking and push the task onto his nephew. Lin Noyette, hearing that she would be going with her big brother, jumped as if electrocuted, her expression overjoyed when Nadan agreed immediately. After all, he was an idle good-for-nothing. Speaking of which, he wondered how his little brother was doing over there. At this time, in the outskirts of the capital, several scholar-dressed men pointed to the Jinyang Pavilion. Sitting inside was Mr. Ziyang. If they could catch his eye, their future official careers would be smoother than a road paved with money. These young men wanted to suck up a bit and asked Hua Tanian if he had prepared a good poem. His big brother had already prepared half a poem for him, but didn't tell him the second half, claiming he had forgotten it. However, as a Confucian cultivator of the trash-talking school, the young man wasn't chicken, but still crowed very loudly. I just casually wrote half a poem. He even taunted his friend, Yongshu, "You're taking fame and fortune too seriously." Yongshu didn't think it was a matter of fame and fortune or not. The sea of learning and the officialdom are the same. You achieve results through hard study, just as you gain fame through flattery and cunning. The fat guy next to him also chimed in to support Yongshu. Yongshu is right, and today, the officialdom is corrupt. Minor officials collude with corrupt ones to oppress the common people. Natural disasters continue year after year. If you want to change this situation, you need to be a little more flexible in your thinking. At this moment, the two on the left were Li Mubai, once known as the server's top Go player. 5 years ago, he played 3 games against Duke Wei, lost all 3, and angrily smashed the board, never playing Go again. The other was Zhang Shun, a military strategist. His work, 6 chapters of military strategy, written in his youth, is still a required reference book for military officers and generals in the Great Phone. He is the only military strategist who could be compared to Duke Wei, one weighing 8 taels, the other 800 grams. Li Mubai spoke up, teasing Yang Gong. If you had been more flexible back then, you wouldn't have wasted 20 years. Zhang Shen denied it, saying Yang Gong has great ambitions. He is paving his way to the destiny-bestowing realm. Yang Gong heard this and sighed wearily. He was the top scholar of the 14th year of the Yuanjing era. The following year, he quietly left the dramatic officialdom and returned to the Cloud Deer Academy to study. He then became a great Confucian scholar famous throughout the world. Today, after 20 years, he was going to Qingzhou to serve as the provincial administration commissioner. Speaking of the past, Yang Gong was ultimately pushed out of the officialdom. The problem wasn't with them, but with those from the Imperial Academy. They didn't want people from the Cloud Deer Academy like them to make a comeback. The feud between the Cloud Deer Academy and the Imperial Academy was related to a period in history. The Cloud Deer Academy was founded by the great disciple of the Confucian sage, claiming to be the orthodox Confucian school. But 200 years ago, due to a dispute during the founding of the nation, they were thoroughly disliked by the emperor of that time. Just then, a teacher from the Cloud Deer Academy seized the opportunity to establish his own school, relying on the philosophy of pursuing the way of heaven and earth and eliminating the evil in the human heart to win the emperor's favor. With the emperor's support, he established the Imperial Academy and became a great master of his generation. From then on, it replaced the Cloud Deer Academy as the main pipeline for officials in the court. The struggle for Confucian orthodoxy has thus continued for 200 years. Yang Gong's trip this time was to open a new path for the Cloud Deer Academy, to establish a foundation for them in the officialdom. But to revive the former glory of the Cloud Deer Academy, they needed the concerted efforts of several people and even more outstanding young talents. Li Mubai saw that everyone had arrived and stood up to ask the students if any of them wanted to compose a poem for Zhang. The winner would receive his personal jade pendant. The crowd saw it was a fine prize, and their eyes shone brighter than stars as they quickly clamored student wishes to compose a poem. An hour later, the three scholars' faces were frozen. They had to exclaim, truly a talent of stone. This level of poetry was a complete disaster. Li Mubai was deeply regretful. Ever since the Imperial Academy re-annotated the sages' classics, students across the land only buried their heads in masterpieces and literature, and poetry lost its spirit. This was also the reason why modern Confucianism began to decline. In the past, Confucianism was invincible, standing neutral among the major powers. However, now it was at the bottom of society, hanging out with fan and weebs. Yang Gong then reassured his little old brother and asked again, all right, let's not talk about these things anymore. Does anyone else want to compose a poem? Just as the young man Zhu Tweezy, who stood out from the crowd, was smugly thinking the jade pendant was surely his, someone spoke up. Teacher, I have a poem. Everyone focused on Tan Nian as if looking at a gambler. Especially Zhang Shun, who was no stranger to his disciple's poetic talent, broke out in a cold sweat. He managed to introduce him to the other two old men, saying this was his disciple, famous for his essays on military strategy, a talent worth nurturing. But in his heart, he added, a person who can't write poetry. Hua Tan Nian, at this moment, ignored everyone's doubtful gazes, struck a pose, and said with a somber and dangerous air, 1,000 miles of yellow clouds, the white sun adrift. The north wind blows the wild geese. The snow falls in flurries. The two lines of poetry, full of captivating charm, were like a thunderclap in a clear sky, causing the three old men's hearts to tremble. It perfectly matched Yang Gong's current situation as he was about to take office. It seemed the court valued him and gave him authority, but the powerful figures from the Imperial Academy would not stand by and watch him rise to the top in a single step, stabilizing the foundation for the Cloud Deer Academy. This time, his trip to Qingzhou had an unpredictable future. The road ahead was shrouded in mist. Tan Nian continued with two more lines of poetry, his face full of confidence. Fear not that the road ahead has no bosom friends, for who in this world does not know of you? This time, the two lines of poetry had such a powerful spiritual impact that Duong Kung had to admit it was truly a poem of peerless quality. The other hangers-on got goosebumps as if winter had descended in the middle of summer. The three old men were overjoyed, praising the fine poem and asking their student for the other half. When asked, Tan Nian didn't know how to respond and bullshitted that this poem only had one half. Looking at his expression, only a dog would believe him and those. Men were not dogs, but they barked right back. How could anyone write half a poem? Are you even human? The three old scholars felt that this student was truly one of a kind. Duong Kung reassured his student, saying it was fine. Half a poem was already enough to astonish others. Although it was a 7-character poem missing a half, the poetry of the Great Phone was in decline, and if this poem were to spread, it would surely cause a shockwave in the literary world. It would be praised by students all over the realm. Duong Kung then asked Tan Nian for the poem's title. That had once waved his hand, saying it had no name, so Tan Nian also replied, it has no name, sir. Only then did Duong Kung reveal his shameless face that, don't be hasty, don't be hasty. If this poem is a farewell poem for me, then this old man will think of a name for you. The other two old men looked on, incredibly jealous. Tan Nian, being targeted by the old man, stammered until his words failed him. Duong Kung unexpectedly stroked his beard and thought, let's call it, seeing Duong Kung off to Tan Chao, Duong Pavilion, and even gave 2 thumbs up. How wonderful. The name made sense, but it was so brazen. When a student presents a poem to a teacher, the title should use the teacher's style name or honorific. Only peers or close friends could write a person's given name into a poem. Looking at Truong then and Lai Mo Bak at this moment, you could tell how indignant they were. It was clear this old man was no longer afraid of shame in order to make a name for himself. The two shared a status update of frustration with this despicable, shameless, and honorless old man. While one of the 3 old men was smug and the others were bitter as hell, Tan Nian interrupted, ahem, teacher, and you too, sirs. This poem was not written by me, but by someone else. All 3 old men were shocked. What the FCK? The eavesdroppers were also curious who it could be, wondering if it was someone from their academy. Tan Nian with a domineering aura, said it was his big brother. Hearing this, the crowd buzzed with whispers. How could there be such a poetic talent that no one knew about? Why had they never heard of this person? Now, after the high wore off, Tan Nian came to his senses and thought, I'm screwed. I've been influenced by my crude father. I shouldn't have mentioned my crude brother. Learned people are often arrogant. If everyone knew his big brother was merely a bailiff, they would cry a river. A lowly bailiff could write a masterpiece of a 7-character poem. They would have to hide their faces in the latrine. Tan Nian knew the situation was bad and had to brag and boast about his brother and why big brother studies the classics diligently at home. He is not at Cloud Deer Academy nor at the Imperial Academy. His personality is bland, he doesn't compete with the world, and he has no interest in fame or fortune, only wanting to study diligently until his hair turns white. Of course, he was talking about himself, but through Tan Nian's stream of praise, which was better than a template essay, his brother's image was magnified to the heavens, making those young men worship him as a true idol. After that, Duong Kung departed for Tan Chao, giving his last jade pendant to the first-place student, Hua Tan Nian. Before leaving, Duong Kung stuck his head out and said to the other 2 old men, such a great talent cannot be hidden. What do you 2 think? Liamo, Bak, and Truong then acted nonchalant, laughing heartily and waving. Then, Old Lee's eyes turned red. This time, you're dead to me. This old man immediately got the idea to take on a disciple and clung to Tan Nian, saying, you have nothing to do today. Take me to meet your elder brother. Truong then didn't expect to encounter such a shameless fellow, and, not to be outdone, the old man immediately said to Tan Nian, if you and your elder brother both become my disciples, it would surely be a fine story. This was truly a feudal-era pyramid schemer, already planning for a future of exploiting that An's brain for a poem about himself. The thought alone made him happy. Ha ha ha. But Liamo Bak immediately intervened. The art of war is not the main path. A learned person must first study the meaning of the classics, master the treatises, cultivate the spirit, and manage the family. Truongdan's face wrinkled as he retorted sarcastically, is the way of go the mainstream then? Or is it someone who cannot fail? With not a single victory against Wei Yuan in hand. Liamo Bak was hit hard by these words. You old scoundrel, shut your mouth. Don't mention Wei Yuan in front of me. This old man has always cherished talent, and I am determined to take this student. Tan Nian, caught in the middle of this verbal battle rap, was out of place, helpless and lonely. At this point, the 2 old men went from verbal sparring to physical fighting, neither willing to yield to the other. The scene changes to that, and this was his first time, not with a green dragon in his instant noodles, but his first time strolling the streets with his younger sister. His sister, Lin Noyette, kept stealing glances at her big brother, thinking to herself, ever since the tax silver case, Big Brother's relationship with us has suddenly improved so much. Not like before, when he was cold to us. That suddenly looked at his sister, making her blush, but he was thinking that he could improve the clothing of this era, making women's clothing more beautiful and attractive, especially making women's clothing more attractive, it should be said, to the point of being jaw-dropping to the viewer. If a young man like that were to do it, he would probably be smitten by heaven and earth for having such lecherous thoughts that even hell wouldn't accept him. At this moment, the little girl Lin A.M. saw Candied Hawthorne and shouted, sister, sister, I want to eat. But the family had just faced a great disaster. Their money was depleted, and Lin Noyette had no money on her. So the little girl resorted to, when in trouble, call Big Brother. Say what you will, Big Brother didn't know much, but the one thing he didn't have was money. However, with his unwashed character, he clumsily stepped on some silver. Lin Noyette's eyes lit up at the sight of the silver, while Lin A.M. was distracted by the food. This time, that An's hand trembled as he picked it up. Holy shit, he picked up a silver coin again. This was truly unscientific. Just in time, he had money to listen to music at the call-on. He thought again, could it be fate that I go to the call-on every day? Then still held back, thinking of a way to break through to the chi refining realm first. Besides, he still didn't know the definite limits of martial power in this world. In the future, stronger abilities might clarify the reason for this absurd luck. After that, then generously used the money he found a treat. His family. Lin Noyette was extremely grateful when given the Candied Hawthorne, thanking her big brother. That looked at her and thought she was even sweeter than the Candied Hawthorne. Unbeknownst to them, the little girl Lin A.M. had already devoured hers and was reaching out to eat her big brother's candy. That cast a judgmental look at his gluttonous little sister and asked, do you want to eat it? The little girl was surprised that her big brother knew. That and then put on a face to scare a child. If you eat too much Candied Hawthorne, worms will grow in your mouth. The worms are white and fat, plump all over. The little sister heard this and gulped, not out of fear but because she thought it sounded delicious. That was helpless against this little sister and had to surrender, handing over the candy. At this moment, a commotion nearby attracted Lin A.M.'s attention. The innocent little girl pointed up and said to her big brother, the ladies on the upper floor are so beautiful. That was the Kashamoon Pavilion, a third-rate brothel. But even for a third-rate brothel, the entrance fee was 2 silver coins, ridiculously expensive. To sleep with a lady, depending on her quality, would cost at least 5 or 6 coins, and up to 1 or 2 taels, more of a rip-off than fried chicken. Looking looking at the few loose coins that That had to cry bitterly, "I am not worthy." At this moment, to answer his little sister's question, he slyly said, "Those ladies are doing business, so of course they have to dress beautifully." Lin AM, with a million questions, asked her big brother, what kind of business are they doing? Of course, they're selling fresh abalone and fruits. Lin Yet was very surprised by the answer, while Lin AM, hearing about food, couldn't hold back anymore and raised her hand, shouting to her big brother, let's go up there. Abalone is delicious." Lin Noyet wanted to stop her little sister right away and then question her big brother. Not expecting Lin Noyet to understand his meaning, panicked and backed down. "The fish balls over there seem pretty good and only cost some change. Big brother will go buy some for you." With that, he waved and left. Lin AM pointed at her big brother and said to her sister, "Big brother is so nice." Lin Noyet also replied with a as if with a hidden meaning. Had just bought a bag of pastries and was running back to his two sisters when he froze. Before him, his two sisters were surrounded and being bullied by some thugs. Lin AM, though small, had a fierce mouth, pointing at the man on the horse and shouting, "You bad man." The man, being cursed at by a snot-nosed kid, looked annoyed. He deliberately pulled the horse's reins, causing it to neigh loudly and lose control, stomping wildly. Lin Noyet was being blocked by several strong men and couldn't get to the rescue. Just then, Vedin dropped everything and rushed forward. Just as the scoundrel was about to make a move, he took the few coins in his hand and threw them hard. The coins flew like arrows, and this bloody toll all fell within the little girl Lin M's sight. The horse fell head over heels, and the young master on it fell precariously. Luckily, a servant rushed forward in time to catch him. The people who saw this became nervous. The little girl Lin AM was stunned, then looked at her blood-stained hand and was frightened. Quickly, another warm hand took hers. Vedin hugged his little sister and comforted her. "Don't be afraid, big brother is here." This feeling of care and warmth made Lin AM choke up and start wailing. Vedin then looked at the group, his face as cold as ice. He felt the situation was serious and told Lin Noyet to take Lin AM to the Chonglu County Yamen and beat the drum. He said to tell them he had sent his sister. Then, he told her to have head Constable Vong send someone to the residence of Centurion Chu of the Imperial Sword Guard to invite Uncle Hua from Fohong Lam. Vedin urged his sister to hurry. Lin Noyet quickly understood and left. At this moment, the troublemakers walked up behind Vedin. He looked at Vedin with a very loving gaze and asked, "Was it you who killed my man?" Vedin also stood up and replied, "That's right. And I want to kill your whole family too." It must be said that horses in this world are worth 1,000 gold pieces and are hard to come by. The buyers have both money and power. Only those with the rank of deputy general in the army can ride one. It's equivalent to a modern Lamborghini. In this ancient era, someone who can drive this Malaysian brand Lamborghini is definitely the son of an official. And the only one who can fight an official is another official fighting fire with fire. Vedin was very restrained at this moment, and the official's son asked. So he cupped his hands and replied, "I am Hua Vedin, nephew of Hua bin Trai, a centurion of the Imperial Sword Guard. The two just now are my younger sisters. I don't know how they offended you, young master. I acted to save my sister and accidentally killed your beloved horse. I, Hua, promise to compensate you." "Oh, don't call him Hua Vedin. Call him that, Hua." The young man heard the name Hua bin Trai and asked again, "Is that the guy who lost the tax silver?" Vedin still wore a hideous smile and replied, "That's right." The guy, without another word, ordered his subordinates to attack. Those guys were definitely crazy. Vedin saw that words were useless and had to use martial arts to stop them. He leaned to the side to dodge, then lean back. He used his lightness skill to jump high, thinking that just two cheap early-stage essence refining cultivators couldn't do anything to him. But, surprise, buddy, another young man attacked from behind. The current situation was that he was being attacked from three sides. One of them had already drawn a bit of blood from his waist. Before Vedin could think, the three of them combined there. Attack. With a bang, the men were very smug, and the leader laughed despicably. He wanted to teach Vedin some manners, to make him call him Grandpa twice. Although, Vedin was at the peak of essence refining, and the strongest among them was only at the mid-stage of essence refining, and even though they attacked together, it was nothing to him. He stood up and did call him Grandpa, but added, "Grandma tastes delicious." The guy was clearly provoked to madness and ordered his men to deal with him. The three of them followed the order and attacked. Vedin thought it was time for him to show his skills. His foot stomped hard, and he launched himself forward, causing the two behind to miss. The one in front was hit by a punch and cried out in pain. His ribs were even shattered. The group didn't expect Vedin to be hiding his strength. It was a classic chairman pretending to be poor script that spared no one. The leader didn't expect this unbelievable move to be so easily countered by Vedin. He was being choked so hard he couldn't even squeeze out the words, "Let me go," and was about to open his mouth to say, "Do you know who my father is?" when he was punched in the stomach by Vedin. This guy was punched until he coughed up blood, his HP bar dropping without breaking. Vedin issued a warning that it's not your turn to bully my little sister. The thought of how scared his little sister Lin AM was made him unable to contain his anger. A continuous series of punches landed like thunder, beating this guy half to death, so much that even a dead person would cry out. The servants watched like helpless husbands as their master was beaten to a pulp, his body in one place. and his soul in another. Then, that impressed his stinky foot on his face and threatened. The agitated elements. All of you stand still, don't move, or I'll kill him. The leader still had a strong mouth, praising very good. Do you know who I am? Seeing this guy running his mouth, that had decided to teach him a lesson in confusion. When a common man is angry, blood splatters everywhere. The situation was very tense until the Yamen runners arrived and cleared the crowd. The one who came was head Constable Vong, who had a temper as short as a fuse and immediately cursed, "You bastards," daring to fight on the streets of Chonglu County. He then ordered his subordinates to arrest everyone. The young leader didn't expect to be arrested like a chicken and resentfully shouted to arrest the guy, surnamed Hua. This young master will chop him into pieces. This guy was ignorant and foul-mouthed, and after a few sentences, he was already threatening the Yamen runners. This time, Hua then was in trouble. That guy's identity was not simple at all. Head Constable Vong turned to ask that if he had a solution. That had no other choice, and asked Head Constable Vong if he had informed his second uncle. A moment later, the group had been brought to the county magistrate. County Magistrate Chow immediately recognized the leader as young Master Chow, the son of Vice Minister Chow, and warmly greeted him. "Are you okay?" "Okay. Happy to be okay." He kept insistently framing that as a thug on a boat and demanded he be arrested immediately. County Magistrate Chow was in a difficult position and could only pretend to go along with the guy, surnamed Chow, punching and kicking a few times and cursing a few words. In his heart, he was secretly worried for that and, "You were foolish this time." Then he humbled himself and flattered the guy. A great man should not concern himself with a petty person. Only now was that in surprise that he was the son of the Vice Minister of Revenue. In the officialdom of the Great Feng dynasty, the forbearance of a high-ranking official was immense. What mattered was not the rank, but the background and power. First and second rank officials were as common as vegetables in the market, but the people truly at the pinnacle of power were only a few. The ministers and vice ministers of the 6 ministries were among this few. Even if Uncle Hua was a centurion of the Imperial Sword Guard, in front of the Vice Minister of Revenue, he wasn't even worthy of being a fart. This time, then had beaten the son of the Vice Minister of Revenue, so the outcome was more ominous than auspicious. At this moment, the guy surnamed Chow refused to listen to County Magistrate Chow's insincere words. This guy was more shrewish than a woman and lawlessly ordered his men to arrest Hua then on the spot. Just as this pack of wolves and tigers was about to make a move, County Magistrate Chow immediately stepped forward and shouted, "Who dares to use force in the county yamen? They will be killed without mercy." And so, the group of bailiffs surrounded them. The guys who were like lions and tigers, just now were now more obedient than puppies. Young Master Chow, having been slapped in the face by County Magistrate Chow, was unconvinced and threatened the old man, "You, surnamed Chu, you dare to touch my men?" Immediately, County Magistrate Chow put on his flattering face again and said, "Young Master Chow, don't misunderstand. This official is an imperial official and is only acting according to the law." Right after that, he pulled out a piece of paper and his face changed faster than flipping a book, saying, "This official has a case file accusing you, young master, of letting your horse run wild to assault and bully a good family's daughter. The accuser is Hua Lin Noyet." The guy, with a despicable face, denied it and questioned back, "Letting my horse run wild? But who did I injure? Bullying a good family's daughter? Did I even touch a single fingertip of that woman?" Veins popped on County Magistrate Chow's hands. But just when you thought something would happen, the old man quickly put away the complaint and shirked responsibility. "It's possible I got the wrong person. He. In his heart, he had to apologize to that end. "I've tried my best. Any more trying, and I'll be trying to die." That and on the side, really wanted to say, "Old Chu, don't be so cowardly." Now that old Chu couldn't handle it, he had to save himself. If he couldn't, he'd run, but he didn't want to implicate his family. Then had started looking for a solution and saw one of the guys from the Chow group run off, probably to find some third-party software. He was startled when he saw old Chu had already closed his eyes and given up, game over, knowing this old man couldn't stop it anymore. This was not good. To save himself, then sold himself to head Constable Vong for the price of 1 tael of silver. The very righteous old Vong lent him approximately 1 tael, specifically half a tael. That in, as if he had a plan, asked old Vong to quickly ride to his house and get a book from the cabinet next to his bed. He was to get a book with a green cover and was warned not to get the wrong one, or an inch of error would lead to meeting his ancestors. After getting the book, he was to go to the Imperial Astronomy Bureau and find Chutai Va'd help him pass a message. Hua then is in trouble. Come help quickly. When head Constable Vong heard it was the Imperial Astronomy Bureau, he immediately wanted to stop. Looking at the old man's expression, that could guess right away. So the young man resorted to his roguish tricks, patting his stomach and threatening his boss with a wicked face. If something happens to me, no one will pay you back this silver. If you help me pass this message, I'll give you all of next month's salary. Head Constable Vong was angered by this shameless trick. But before the power of money, he had to submit and left resentfully, you little brat. Then looked at this fair-weather friend of his and could only rely on this confidant from the brothel to help him overcome this 80-second tribulation. Just as old Vong sped off, Uncle Hua arrived. The guy's surname Chow pointed at him and asked, "Who are you?" "I don't know you. Get lost." Uncle Hua was extremely cold at this moment. He had just found out from Lin Noyet and couldn't contain his fury. Thinking of the scene where the arrogant Chow guy was about to hit his daughter, he now had more guts than brains. The old man's eyes, filled with killing intent, were fixed on that nephew, and he asked, "Is that story true?" The pasty-faced Chow guy looked at Uncle Hua and remembered that Anne's words. When a common man is enraged, blood splatters everywhere. He was momentarily scared into a jumble of words. Just then, a voice appeared and stopped Uncle Hua. This man had teleported behind Uncle Hua at some point. He was suppressed by this person's aura and couldn't move. The person who arrived was an old man with freckles on his face, looking very gloomy and dangerous. He asked, "So what if my young master doesn't let it go? Do you still want blood to splatter everywhere?" This old man was a master at the spirit refining realm. Seeing his elder show up, young Master Chow immediately tattled to his elder and acted pitiful. Uncle Tran looked at his sobbing young master and wanted to use his seniority to teach a lesson to the ones who bullied his young master. Seeing that this old man had a cultivation of a 7th-rank spirit refining realm, 2 ranks higher than him, then broke out in a cold sweat. Old Chu coughed a few times to get back into the match, then politely asked, "Who might you be, sir?" He wanted to get acquainted with the old man, but the old man replied sarcastically, "This old man is just an old servant in the Chow residence. I can't accept a sir from Lord Chu." Old Chow wanted to smooth things over for both sides, to make it easier to deal with the upcoming capital inspection. But that Uncle Tran looked down on them, saying the two were just small fries not worth mentioning and wouldn't affect his master's capital inspection. Therefore, everything should be handled according to the imperial system of regulations. After that, this old man called people over, using the excuse that the Ministry of Justice was hunting a fugitive and that unrelated people should step aside. Another person who arrived was an official from the Ministry of Justice named Huang Longzhou. As soon as this guy entered, he threatened to deal with anyone who interfered. Then, he put on a sweet, flattering face for the pasty-faced Chow and asked him where the fugitive was, and if he was dirty, because he was playing so dirty. He then pointed at that end and told his men to chain him up like a dog. Huang Longzhou obeyed and quickly called his men to make the arrest. Uncle Hua, seeing his nephew about to be thrown into prison, wanted to question them. "Your Excellency, what crime has my nephew committed?" The fat man, relying on his connections, said, "As a Longzhou of the Ministry of Justice, I have always handled cases fairly. Whether he is guilty or not, I will decide for myself." The pasty-faced Chow was very pleased, smiling darkly. After that and was taken away, Uncle Hua still wanted to stop them, but County Magistrate Chu stopped him lest he get hit. The pasty-faced Chow even wanted that in dead. Uncle Tran, with a dangerous face, replied, "Yes, this old servant will handle it satisfactorily." After he left, Uncle Hua could finally move, but his mana bar was empty. He really wanted to file a complaint, but it was useless. As a mere centurion of the Imperial Sword Guard, he couldn't meet the Emperor, nor did he have the right to submit a memorial. County Magistrate Chu showed him a bright path. Go find Tan Nian, because he was a student of the Cloud Deer Academy. Although the academy was suppressed by the officialdom, it was not full of scholars who couldn't even trust a chicken. It was a group of disciples of the sage. It must be said that the reason Hua Tan Nian was able to avoid exile in the tax silver case was precisely because of the group of people at Cloud Deer Academy. After all, they didn't just use their mouths to eat. They could also spout reasoning that could win people's hearts, a pound for 60, 2 pounds for 100. Scene changed to the Imperial Astronomy Bureau. The head here was the director, who could observe the stars and set the calendar. He was a celestial-like figure who could converse with the immortals in the sky, unlike his troublemaking disciples. Especially the alchemists of the Imperial Astronomy Bureau, who brought blessings to the common people, were revered as gods in the hearts of the people. No one dared to approach such a divine place. Yet some young man, surnamed Vong, had come, as if possessed by ghosts and demons. He came here, but his whole body was as limp as noodles. Damn you, Hua Thatin. The first floor of the stargazing tower was a gathering of 9th-rank physician disciples. A disciple who was playing with medicine glanced at Head Constable Vong, his voice filled with surprise, as if seeing a strange creature. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Head Constable Vong was still extremely nervous, his limbs trembling. He tried to compose himself and said he was the head constable of the Chonglu County Yamen. His hand still tightly clutched the green-covered book. On the 7th floor of the stargazing tower, there was an idol named Tong Khan. He was the 4th disciple of the director and the leader among the 6th-rank alchemists. The disciples behind him were cheering the young man on. As long as he could understand the mystery within, the Imperial Astronomy Bureau would have another skill in its grasp. But looking at Song Qing's long constipated face, case, the result was another failure. The chance of success was even lower than the chance of kids born in the 2000s refusing lucky money this new year. Therefore, he greatly admired whichever young man had created this alchemy technique to turn salt into silver. He was truly a genius. If only he could befriend this genius. Just then, some guy waved over to Song Qing and recounted how a constable had been looking for senior Sister Kaiwei earlier. Constable Wang delivered the book and repeated Su Qian's exact words. Su Qian is in trouble. Come save him quickly. Song Qing heard the name Su Qian and found it a bit familiar. When he opened the book, he was first surprised by the terrible handwriting and then surprised by the content. It read, Equivalent Exchange, the Unchanging Principle of Alchemy, Edward Elric. Reading that strange terminology, Song Qing guessed it was a code or some kind of secret language in the field of alchemy. The next page clearly detailed how to enter the world of alchemy. This was no different from teaching others how to enter the field of alchemy, an act of extreme arrogance. Song Qing fell into deep thought. Alchemists always spoke and acted in an exemplary manner. It was always said that a person with foolish aptitude would achieve nothing in 3 or even 10 years. The Directorate of Celestial Observation still didn't have a single proper textbook to this day. Therefore, what was written in the book today completely knocked Song Qing out. The first lesson was the immutability of matter and its properties. In the natural world, there exist many things invisible to the naked eye. These constitute matter. Matter, in turn, exists in many forms that interact with each other and are constantly undergoing change. The more he read about things like physics and chemistry theories, the more Song Qing's head became overloaded. The onlookers saw this and whispered amongst themselves. What kind of unacceptable alchemy is our senior brother thinking about again? Last year, he tried to refine a cat's flesh and blood into a plant, so that if the cat's head was cut off, it could grow back. An idea like this deserved a Harvard acceptance letter to a padded cell. Because of this perverse idea, the young man was imprisoned for a month by the director. But Song Qing, like some villain with a secret ideology, was determined not to give up. Returning to reality, the young man focused on the steps for refining silver in the book. The sequence was clear. Step 1. First, filter the salt water to extract sodium chloride, which is refined salt. Step 2. Evaporate the salt water, separate the crystals, and melt them at a high temperature of 8,000 degrees Celsius. Step 3 was the crucial point for success or failure, the important step to refine silver. The whole truth lay on the next page, but turning it over, he found absolutely nothing. Song Qing almost choked. That was the damn end of it. Song Qing finally understood the key point. This was an exchange. Thinking this, the young man smashed his instrument and called out to his juniors. This is an opportunity for the Directorate of Celestial Observation to rise quickly, a heaven-sent opportunity. He promised that alchemy would welcome an unprecedented era of glory. This was clearly an alchemical revolution. 4.0. In the outskirts of the capital, at this moment, Su Sinian, who was returning in a not-so-bad mood, was suddenly startled. His father came running over in a panic. After his father recounted the situation, he hurriedly, no less panicked than his father, called for his teacher and Mr. Mubai. He begged the 2 elders to intervene and save his older brother. The 2 elders, hearing it was the talented scholar who wrote those verses, both asked at the same time, really? After understanding the whole story, these 2 elders wanted to step in. Right away, the 2 elders even fought over who would save this yet-to-be-accepted student. Seeing the 2 elders about to engage in intense combat, Su Sinian felt helpless with these 2 characters. My brother has been taken to the Ministry of Punishments. We must go quickly. If we're late, I'm afraid something bad will happen. He was at a loss with the 2 elders who would start a verbal spar at the slightest provocation. The 2 elders came to their senses and stopped bickering. Stop arguing with me. Saving my disciple is more important. After that, to go faster, Li Mubai took action, or rather, used his mouth. The old man took the horse's reins and said one sentence. This is a 1,000-li horse that can travel 1,000 li a day. Immediately, the horse, as if on drugs and elixirs, its physical state mutated. Its whole body seemed to be painted, and its speed increased dramatically. Li Mubai even turned back to laugh and taunt Zhang Shun. This disciple is as good as mine, haha. Zhang Shun was not to be outdone and quickly took the coachman's place. Zhang Shun pointed at the horse and boasted. This horse of mine is both big and strong. Not only is it a 1,000-li horse, it also has 6 legs. The horse was then quickly painted and grew 2 more legs for a total of 7 legs. At this speed, even a souped-up street racer's bike couldn't keep up. Zhang Shun overtook Li Mubai and taunted him back. One step ahead of you. Li Mubai pointed at that shameless old scoundrel. What horse has 6 legs? Zhang Shun, still very provocative, replied, If I say it has he, you fool. Li Mubai was pissed off and became even more of a bullshitter. Then this horse of mine has 8 legs. This old man's horse then grew 4 more huge, muscular legs. The horse was like, Am I just your tool? Zhang Shun's face immediately darkened, and he cursed the shameless old scoundrel. You just have to fight with me for a disciple. This carriage of mine is as light as silk paper. Immediately, the carriage flew with the wind. In an instant, it was several kilometers away from Old Bai. Li Mubai watched wide-eyed and open-mouthed at the level of bullshit of his old friend. Zhang Shun took the opportunity to stick his face out and jeer. "Hey, old scoundrel, come over here if you got the guts." Being so blatantly provoked, Li Mubai's anger bar was full. The old man pointed to the sky and bullshitted. "My carriage can ride the clouds." And just like that, his carriage, as if equipped with a rice-powered engine, flew high up. The Su father and son had been watching and had to marvel. Uncle Su had to praise. Truly, a scholar can talk up a storm. Su Sinian immediately explained, "This isn't just talking big. This is the Confucian 5th grade virtue. It also has another name, given by the director when he was drunk. Confucianism disrupts the law." Returning to Qian's story. According to the archives of the capital's Yamen, cases of tyrannical actions by the powerful and noble were countless. But these matters were suppressed before they could reach the old emperor's ears. They want to deal with Qian as quickly and neatly as cutting chives and vegetables, then use the lives of his entire family to force Uncle Su to suffer. This way, even during the period of the capital investigation, those big shots wouldn't have to fear being attacked and eliminated by their enemies. Only now did Qian realize he had been wrong all along. The middle class may live comfortably, but once they cross a major figure, it's eternal damnation, 10 deaths, and no life. To live like a human being, he needed power, the strength of friendship, and his own abilities. While he was thinking, a Yamen runner arrived, not to release him, but to threaten him. "You should eat your beheading meal." At this time, Minister Sun of the Ministry of Punishments was flipping through some memorials. Suddenly, a strong wind blew all the papers away. This old man didn't know what the hell was happening anymore. He looked out and saw the 2 rice-powered engines had fallen head over heels. It seemed they didn't want to be horses anymore. As for the 2 old men, who were like exploiting capitalists, they switched from their shameless interface back to a dignified appearance. Minister Sun saw they were acquaintances and came out to ask the 2 elders what brought them here. Zhang Shun spoke carefully. "The Ministry of Punishments today arrested a disciple of mine named Su Qian. I'll have to trouble Minister Sun to release him." Minister Sun's armpits were now soaked with sweat. They actually arrested a student from the Yunlu Academy? In the political arena, the Imperial College suppressed Yunlu Academy to the point it couldn't raise its head. Both schools were children of the Imperial Court. It was just that one was the favorite child and the other was the stepchild. However, Yunlu Academy held the future generation of Confucian cultivators. At the same time, it was not a soft persimmon that others could knead as they pleased. Minister Sun was already cursing the bastards from Yunlu Academy in his heart. Unless the disciple they mentioned truly violated the law, otherwise who from our Ministry of Punishments would dare to proactively cause trouble? Just then, a report came. Someone from the Directorate of Celestial Observation had forced their way into the Yamen. No one could stop them. Huh, an earthquake? No, that's the troublemakers coming up. The leader of the troublemakers, Song Qing, cupped his hands and demanded the person. Minister Sun heard this, looked back at the 2 elders, and felt a sense of dread. Sure enough, Song Qing then said it was the person who was baselessly arrested by the Ministry of Punishments today. Su Qian. It was Su Qian again, which made the old man even more curious about Su Qian's background. It was one thing for the great Confucians of Yunlu Academy to come, but even the director's disciple was here. This old man began to weigh his options. In a great phone, no one wanted to offend the director, even if Yunlu Academy prided itself on being the orthodox Confucian school. When mocked by the drunken director as using literature to disrupt the law, they could only swallow their pride and accept it. They had no intention of using their ultimate skill, persuading with reason, on the great director. The whole group could only act like turtles in their shells whenever they met the director. Minister Sun heard the name Qian 3 times before remembering he was the one who solved the tax silver case. This made his brain even more tangled. Why would a crude martial artist be connected to both the Confucian school and the Directorate of Celestial Observation? How could this be? Suddenly, someone found it strange. In the arrest warrant documents, there was no one named. Su Qian. Hearing this, Minister Sun was shocked and asked who made the arrest. At this moment, the man named Huang Zhong felt guilty and tried to slip away. But someone remembered and pointed him out. Being singled out, the man was terrified. He tried to justify it, saying it happened suddenly. So he didn't have time to get the arrest warrant before taking the person. He continued to bullshit that young Master Zhou had someone file a complaint, saying the thief had beaten him in the middle of the street, and even said he wanted his blood to splash everywhere. At this moment, Song Qing used the Qi observation technique, which could see if the other person was lying. Sure enough, the guy was bullshitting more than a multi-level marketer. Next was the Confucian's performance. Li Mubai began to open his mouth. The sage said, "A gentleman should be honest." This control ability made the official involuntarily spit on himself. Admitting his lies were shameless and despicable. After an internal struggle, he honestly confessed that young Master Zhou wanted to kill Su Qian, wanting him to die in the Ministry of Punishment's prison to vent his hatred. He admitted that he wanted to suck up to Zhou. After confessing everything, he felt as light as if he had just taken a dump. The public opinion behind him began to criticize his incredibly despicable behavior. At this point, he was completely done for. At this time, Qian was standing before the document, on which was written the crime of assault on the street by Qian, and the victim was the son of the Vice Minister of Revenue. If he signed and stamped it, the lightest punishment would be exile, but if that buzzcut guy casually intervened, he could very well become a skull. The man mockingly gave him two choices. 1, agree to confess and be tortured, or 2, be tortured first and then agree. Qian was tense. Weren't they just trying to kill him? Seeing his scowling face, that Zhou guy even huddled into his guardian's arms and complained. Oh my, that expression is scaring me to death. Uncle Chun, what if he wants to make my blood splash everywhere again? The old man told him, young master, rest assured, he's just an ant. A single slap from this old servant can kill him. This time, Qian felt he was really screwed. His star of hope, Chu Kaiwei from the Directorate of Celestial Observation, still hadn't come to save him. He held his head in helplessness. I clearly wrote that book to be very appealing. If you don't come save me, I'm going to be crippled. At this moment, that Zhou guy mentioned Qian's Uncle Su. He deliberately said that since he was raised by Uncle Su from a young age, their relationship must be very good. He used that to further slander Uncle Su as Qian's accomplice. Qian was startled that the guy had investigated him so thoroughly. Just then, someone walked in and said loudly, "This is the Ministry of Punishments, not the Ministry of Revenue. If young Master Zhou wants to interrogate a prisoner, go back to the Ministry of Revenue and do it." Being interrupted, the Zhou guy was visibly annoyed and retorted, "Who are you to disturb me?" The person had no intention of yielding and, on the contrary, advanced further. This attitude made Zhou's blood boil. Next, by order of Minister Sun of the Ministry of Punishments, Qian was released, and then very quickly, Qian's shackles were removed. Taking the opportunity, the young man became cocky and pointed to himself, saying to the crowd, "Let me reintroduce myself. I am the new disciple of the director." Hearing he was the director's disciple, the two guys were so scared they nearly pissed their pants. Uncle Chun thought it was impossible. If he really were the director's disciple, the tax silver case wouldn't have brought disaster upon the Su family. But then he thought it was possible because it was through the tax silver case that he successfully refined counterfeit silver. The director, seeing this alchemy genius, made an exception and took him as a disciple. The fact that the people from the Directorate of Celestial Observation were standing right in front of them further reinforced the old man's thoughts. At this moment, Qian looked at the group and found it strange. The little beauty with the 8 cups wasn't here. He thought, Constable Wong delivered the alchemy secret manual, but Miss Kaiwei isn't here. However, the alchemists of the Directorate of Celestial Observation must have seen the contents of the book and came to save me. Or perhaps Miss Kaiwei had something to do and couldn't come, so she asked her fellow disciples to save me. He smiled smugly and said very naturally, Su Qian pays his respects to all senior brothers. The senior brothers were like, what the F is this guy talking about? Song Qing, ignoring it, forced a smile on his hard-to-read face and asked Qian, did you write the book? Qian admitted, yes, I did. Then he gestured that this was not the place to talk. Let's leave the Ministry of Punishments. And then promised Song Qing, whatever senior brother wants to ask, Ning Yan will answer everything. At this time, Zhou leaned in and whispered to Minister Sun, why are the people from the Directorate of Celestial Observation here? Minister Sun replied helplessly, they came to me to demand the person. Hearing the answer, the two of them went from mild despair to completely incurable, becoming even more certain that Qian was truly the director's disciple. They then looked at the two great Confucian scholars and were hit with another bucket of hot water. They were also here to demand the person. The two elders had been observing Qian for a while. Zhang Shen was quick to grab the mic and speak to Qian first. Don't worry about having no friends on the road ahead. For who in the world does not know you? Did you write that? That fellow Qian replied humbly and was about to build a connection when Song Qing grabbed his shoulder. The young man quickly urged him to return to the Directorate of Celestial Observation. Seeing Su Qian's good attitude, the two elders wanted him even more. After they left, the other two guys were finally given time to catch their breath. They're finally gone, but suddenly stop. Qian suddenly turned his head and said he still had one more thing to handle. Seeing Qian pushing his luck, a panicked Zhou pulled on Minister Sun's sleeve, wanting him to arrest him again, but in return, the minister's live and let die attitude made the guy despair. With a click, Qian picked up the iron shackle, threw it up, then suddenly grabbed the chain and threw it with all his might, straight at Zhou's face. The guy was headshot and blood splattered everywhere. Before falling, his eyes filled with tears as he looked at Uncle Chun for help, but the old man remained motionless. And just like that, Zhou's role ended here. Uncle Chun witnessed it all, but could do nothing, only casting a murderous glare at Qian. But that fellow Qian was now like an uncontrollable beast, roaring in front of our senior brothers and the esteemed sirs of the Ministry of Punishments, in front of two great Confucian scholars. You dare to kill me? This ant right here, come and get me if you got the guts. Uncle Chin's mind was so shaken by Qian that he stepped back. back. Luckily, he wasn't far-sighted. Only then did Qian understand even more clearly. Only an official son can deal with an official son. This ordeal had further honed Qian's mindset. He was a fledgling before coming here. After leaving, he was an eagle with a broken wing. At the same time, the Su father and son were anxiously running to check on Qian's situation. When he saw the group of people in front of him, Uncle Su was stunned. Qian was safe and sound. Seeing Uncle Su, he happily called out. Uncle Su found it strange. Why was there a group from the Directorate of Celestial Observation? As for the people from the Directorate, their eyes were still looking down their noses in disdain at a crude martial artist like Uncle Su. On one side, Su Sinian thanked the two elders for their help. Zhang Shun asked him with concern, "Your older brother has such poetic talent. How can he be a mere yamen runner?" Sinian, truly a fair-weather brother to Qian, immediately threw this difficult question to his older brother while he watched the show. Qian's balls shriveled. Since when was Li Mubai holding Qian's hand? With a lewd expression, he looked at Qian as if looking at a treasure, trying his best to entice him to join his group. Zhang Shun, having been beaten to the punch by the old man, was tense. He was also determined not to lose, pushing past his old friend and again trying to persuade Qian to take him as a teacher. Qian looked on, not knowing what game these two were playing. The two elders were so enthusiastic it made Qian feel endlessly awkward. He wanted to know what was going on, but his younger brother ignored him and wouldn't say. Seeing his brother ignore him, Qian decided to mess with him. He cupped his hands and expressed to the two elders that although he cultivated the martial path, learning is boundless, and he had a talent for reading. If he went to the academy, he would surely follow in their footsteps, and even said he would surpass his younger brother. Sinian, his sore spot touched, had his pride flare up, and he jeered at his older brother. "What teacher and Mr. Mubai admire are your poems, for example? The ones about Mianyang Pavilion, sending off Yang, and the one about Chengzhou." After speaking, he saw the two elders react immediately, which made Sinian realize he had stepped on a landmine. From his brother's words, Qian understood what was going on. The official career path for Yunlu Academy was extremely difficult. They couldn't become high-ranking officials, nor could they be recorded in the history books. Poetry was indeed a shortcut to get one's name into history. He thought it was touching, but it turned out to be chilling. So it turned out these two old men coveted his poetry, not his character, which was fit to be fed to the dogs. What wicked, despicable old men. However, for the benefit of the country and himself, Qian still accepted these two convenient masters. "Thank you, two sirs, for your consideration. Ningyan has a heart for learning, and it would be disrespectful to refuse. As it happens, I've had a burst of inspiration recently, and have been nurturing a few good poems. After this matter is resolved, Ningyan will definitely visit Yunlu Academy to pay my respects to both teachers." The two old men, smelling a good deal, beamed with joy. Looking at Qian was like seeing good poems and a reputation in history for themselves, or in other words, increasing their own brand value on the international market. This student is truly quick-witted. Afterwards, the three of them scheduled a formal meeting at Yunlu Academy. Before leaving, Zhang Shun saw that his own disciple hadn't had a breakthrough in a year and punished him by making him copy the sage's path of stupidity. With the phrase "diligence makes up for laziness" 300 times, due next week. Young Su Sinian, who had just run his mouth at his older brother, was now hit by karma very quickly. The older brother took the opportunity to repeatedly chant 300 times, making Sinian not know where to hide his face. After committing the crime, Zhang Shun was in high spirits and even used a skill to flex. This old man takes one step of 30 zhang. Then he teleported and disappeared, to the astonishment of the country bumpkins from the Qian family. As for Li Mubai, he was annoyed that the old man had deliberately shown off in front of his disciple. So as not to lose face in Qian's heart, he also flexed. "This old man, within 3 inches, does not belong here. I belong at the city gate." After speaking, he deliberately or intentionally glanced at Qian one more time, and then disappeared. It was truly magical. As expected, under this ridiculously overpowered buff effect, Qian suffered a powerful visual shock. He asked Uncle Su about the cultivation level of the two great Confucians. Uncle Su recalled hearing from Sinian that it was the Confucian 5th grade virtue. Qian's mouth hung open wider as he asked, "So as long as I talk big enough, there's nothing in this world I can't do." Sinian, who had just suffered a severe lag, had his connection restored and replied, "The virtue realm can adjust a person's behavior and actions. It uses words to manipulate others. The main ability of this realm is a preliminary grasp of the truth of what is said is done. It can distort the laws of things to a certain extent. Therefore, it also has another nickname, using literature to disrupt the law." Uncle Su, being a martial artist, was excited, saying only his family's lineage was so belligerent. Sinian heard this and judged him. That's why they say all martial artists are crude. The young man, still fuming, then heard his thick-skinned older brother say, "Second brother, big brother doesn't usually treat you badly." Sinian was furious and pointed, "Before you say that, big brother, go get a colonoscopy for your conscience." Qian, looking like he had some wicked idea, then pleaded with his younger brother that in the future, if his brother reached that fake 5th grade virtue realm, he wanted his brother to say to him, "Big brother's Jiaochan is where?" "Oh, big brother's Jiaochan is on your waist." Sinian was traumatized by his older brother's lecherous appearance. The young man, furious with that despicable fellow, walked away. Uncle Su didn't understand his nephew's meaning, but being on the same wavelength, he still found it very impressive. The group from the Directorate of Celestial Observation, who had been treated like they were invisible this whole time, had faces darker than Sister Dao's life. Song Qing had to remind that fellow to follow them back to the Directorate. Qian jumped and hurriedly said, yes, of course. Returning to the stargazing tower, this was the tallest structure in the capital. The manpower, resources, and finances spent on its construction amounted to 1/3 of the Great Feng Dynasty's annual tax revenue. It was designed and built by the Ministry of Works and the alchemists of the Directorate of Celestial Observation. It took 20 years and was unique in the world. Usually, anyone seeing the stargazing tower for the first time would feel it was a magnificent and splendid miracle. But there are always exceptions in the world, especially for transmigrators like Su Qian. In his previous life, he was used to seeing skyscrapers. So when he saw the stargazing tower, he wasn't surprised at all and even found it ordinary. This made Song Qing extremely curious. Was he ignorant or a great sage feigning foolishness? Of course, it was the latter. The young man claimed he was naturally calm. Often, even with a mountain collapsing in front of him, his expression wouldn't change. This was probably a gift. Song Qing actually believed him and even praised very good. With his calmness, "You are worthy of working with me, Song Qing." Qian didn't understand what that fellow meant. Afterwards, Qian met Chu Kaiwei again. The girl was eating while asking him, "Su Qian, how did you get a criminal record for causing trouble?" Qian wondered why she wasn't at the stargazing tower earlier. Of course, she was at the princess's place. Where there is food, there is Chu Kaiwei. She even slapped his hand away when she saw Qian about to take some of her food, saying, "You haven't eaten yet, have you? Senior brother Song, take him back." The meaning was, wait until you've eaten your fill before coming back here. Being put in his place like this, Qian could already see what the little girl Lingyin would look like when she grew up. Afterwards, Chu Kaiwei brought the topic to the tax silver and asked Qian who had swapped the silver. Qian acted as if he was just a minor constable and didn't know. Chu Kaiwei answered for him. The person was Lu Wenji, a centurion of the Imperial Sword Guards, and also Zhang Exine, a director from the Ministry of Revenue. That means the Vice Minister of Revenue, Zhou Xianping, was their backer. Knowing this, Qian now understood the previous incident perfectly. No wonder when that guy, surnamed Zhou, heard his name, he was determined to drive him to his death. Because he had solved the tax silver case and ruined their grand plan, they wanted to take revenge on him. Even what happened today was something he had plotted for a long time, because the residence of the Ministry of Revenue's Vice Minister Zhou is in the city, while the Su Manor is in the outskirts. The two places are so far apart that even the speed of gossip would have a hard time reaching. Yet that Zhou Pei had to wander near the Su Manor, unless he was intentionally loitering near the Su Manor. If that Zhou fellow had investigated you, then he must have also recognized Ling Yue's appearance. Harassing an innocent girl was just an act. The real purpose was to cause trouble, and at the same time, use this as an excuse to kill you. Although the capital investigation is approaching, killing an insignificant nobody like you wouldn't require a grand third-rank vice minister of the Ministry of Revenue to act personally. It would be like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. It's possible that from the day Su Qian solved the tax silver case, you had already offended the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Revenue. It seems the young man still wants to stay away from imperial power, to be a rich man with a harem of wives and concubines, living a normal, low-key life. If Xinyan hadn't happened to want to present a poem to the Academy's elders, if you hadn't, on a whim a few days ago, written down some chemistry knowledge from memory, your body would now be a cold corpse, not even knowing how you died. Su Qian found it strange that just by provoking a spoiled rich kid, he had stirred up so much trouble. Su Qian concluded that it might be that unusual luck of his. He quickly called out to the eating Kaiwei and asked her, "You know chi gazing, right?" Kaiwei licked her food clean before replying, "I do." An 8th rank warlock is called a chi gazing master. The art of chi gazing is their most basic ability. All the strange things from this system are built on the foundation of chi gazing. Why is a 9th rank warlock not a chi gazing master but called a healer? It's not that all warlocks have a heart for saving lives, but that all things in the world have a destiny. Among them, humans are the most prominent. The 8 sufferings, 7 emotions, and 6 desires of human life are all destiny. A healer, in saving lives, cannot avoid birth, aging, sickness, and death. Over time, this allows their eyes to see through destiny. Su Qian really liked this kind of girl who knows everything. He excitedly asked Kaiwei to read his destiny. It was a small matter for Kaiwei. When she used the chi gazing art, her eyes seemed to see through his heart, liver, and lungs. Su Qian felt that the chi gazing art was extremely uncomfortable. Su Qian's destiny appeared in Saiwei's eyes as a faint red mixed with black chi. The red spider lily signifies painful memories, but it actually represents someone who serves the court. Su Qian's is faint red, indicating he is a low-level official. The black chi symbolizes bad luck. This point had to be understood on his own. Su Qian stubbornly asked again, aren't there other colors? For example, the color that symbolizes the sun of heaven's mandate. Chu Kaiwei knew this guy was delusional, but didn't expect it to be this terminal. She quickly muzzled him. If someone else heard, it would be disastrous. Besides the emperor, no one dares to call themselves the son of heaven's mandate. Su Qian still couldn't accept reality. Big dragon, wipe your eyes and look again. I know, she can't see it, most likely due to a difference in rank, or my lucky charm physique has nothing to do with destiny. At this moment, Su Qian still appeared calm, but Saiwei's sharp eyes still noticed. She pushed away Su Qian's hand that was sneakily reaching for the food. She even promised to share the bones with him after she was full, but the girl didn't even spare the bones. Half the table of food had been eaten by her. Su Qian was dissatisfied with the girl's bottomless stomach. He then changed the subject to the current situation of the vice minister of the Ministry of Revenue. Chu Kaiwei then recounted what happened a few days ago. The supervising censor of the Ministry of Revenue impeached Vice Minister Zhou, but the memorial was set aside by His Majesty. As for the two who swapped the tax silver, they committed suicide out of fear of punishment, so there is no evidence. But during this time, if the emperor really wants to kill someone, he doesn't actually need evidence. Su Qian guessed it might be related to political factions, or that the emperor has other thoughts. To get more gossip about the defunct, he continued to squeeze information out of Chu Kaiwei. But Chu Kaiwei felt insulted because their Si Tianjian had never meddled in court affairs. In reality, only she didn't know, so she dragged her whole family down with her. Su Qian knew he had hurt her pride and felt endlessly ashamed. Alright, if you don't want to talk about it, we won't. Next, Su Qian pretended to ask Kaiwei how much this meal cost. Chu Kaiwei asked him back, I gave the shopkeeper 4 taels of silver, and he gave me back 1 tael, 3 mace, and 60 copper coins. So how much did I spend? 1 tael of silver is equal to 8 mace, and 1 mace is equal to 101. This is in a 10-to-1 ratio, so Su Qian also didn't know. When Chu Kaiwei saw his dumbfounded face, she looked at him as if he were one of her own and became much more enthusiastic. For the first time, she generously shared her food with him. Su Qian took it, ate it, and then complained that the taste of this dish was ordinary. Chu Kaiwei was unconvinced because it was from the best shop in the southern city. Su Qian arrogantly said he had eaten much better food, which left Chu Kaiwei stunned. Su Qian then began to entice her to come to his house to eat. Hearing this, Chu Kaiwei's stomach rumbled and her mouth watered. Indeed, if you can't get into a young lady's heart, conquer her stomach. Scene changed to Song Qing, who was now starting his experiment to create counterfeit silver again. The young